For this backpacking trip, I chose, once again, to return to the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. As most of you probably know, it is located on the borders between North Carolina and Tennessee. This time, I chose to go to the southern side of the Smokies, to a location just north of Cherokee, North Carolina. Specifically, I chose the Smokemont Campground. The reason is it's very accessible right there just above Cherokee, and the roads were still open on the 441 up to Smokemont. Secondly, there's a nice little loop trail from the Smokemont Campground that takes less than 4.5 miles to reach the campsite, and from there, less than 1.5 miles to reach the car and complete the loop. That way, in a worst case scenario where it's too cold, I can get up, walk less than 1.5 miles, and I'll be back to the car in warmth. Nice to have a little insurance like that. Since I was doing a loop, I decided to do it counterclockwise so I could get the longer distance done on the first day. So I left my car at the top of the campground, walked down to the entrance, where I started hiking north on the Smokemont Loop Trail. I stayed on this trail for 4.2 miles, gaining just over 1,300 feet from my starting elevation of 2,230 feet, and then descending again nearly down to my starting elevation. I then turned right and traveled 1/2 mile east on the Bradley Fork Trail before turning north for 1/10 mile on the Chasteen Creek Trail to reach Campsite 50, where I spent the night. The next morning, I returned 1/10 mile back to the Bradley Fork Trail, where I continued for another 1.3 miles to reach my car. After getting off of Interstate 40 West onto the US 19, I thought I'd take a shortcut on the Blue Ridge Parkway. Not such a good idea in winter. So I turned around and got back on the 19. However, I finally hit the 441 north after passing through Cherokee and entered the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. Almost immediately, I passed the Oconaluftee Visitor Center on my right, followed by a mile or so of beautiful streams as I traveled on the only slightly icy roads. Well, it is right about the end of January. I'm here at Smokemont Campground here in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. Another spur-of-the-moment, last-minute hike. So I came over here just as they're having a winter storm warning, of course. Fortunately, we had only a few inches of snow, and that was mostly on the back roads getting out of my house to the interstate. So once I got on the interstate, pretty much smooth sailing. I got a little late started getting over here because I had to run back to the house to get something when I got there onto the interstate, so nothing unusual there. So a little afternoon getting started, and got to get about 4.5 miles in about 4.5 hours. So as long as I do about 1.5 miles an hour with only a few stops, I should be able to make it by sundown. And it is, I think it's around 20 degrees at the moment. It's supposed to dip down to around 12. So we should have some fun. But boy, is it a gorgeous day. As you can see, it is just really beautiful here in Smokemont. Forget the name of the trail I'm heading towards, but it's down at the entrance to Smokemont, and it goes along the ridge that parallels the road. So we're gonna head on over here, see what we can find. We are on the Bradley Fork Trail. Actually, it wasn't the Bradley Fork Trail, as you'll soon see me discover. This is gonna head up a ridge here on a small, well, let's call it a mountain to make me feel better.
and we'll gain about maybe 1,200-ish feet in elevation. Get a really beautiful view of the 441 passing us to our west, and surrounding view of the mountains. So it is just, oh, is it gorgeous. A little cold, but gorgeous. My mistake, not Brady Fork, it is the Smokemont Loop Trail that we're starting on. So we are just beginning to pick up a little bit of elevation. Yeah, but it's, the ISO lines are spread out pretty far apart here, so it shouldn't be that bad. However, to make things more interesting, in the winter you have to pack a lot heavier, and my pack with the water and everything I'm carrying, about 45, 48 pounds. So I packed really heavy, but I've got a really short hike. I'm only going about 4.5 miles today with a really short exit back to the car. So I can probably afford to put a little more weight on my pack, hopefully. It is always fun to see various aspects of nature, and while this is not entirely unexpected, we have a really cool track here for you to look at.
I didn't really think much about it at the time, but the more I look at this, the more coyote-like that it looks to me.
I wasn't watching very carefully. I was following the road/trail, and they split it off with a sign that was mostly snow-covered. And I thought I was still on the trail. Turns out I was on a little spur road. That's all right. A little extra exercise. Probably good for me. Gotta love it.
I thought I'd take a moment to show you some of the many different faces of the trail. I love the changing lighting and different views.
Love that serpentine kind of flow. The white trail through the dark green and brown tunnel.
I couldn't help but notice that some of the trees had some interesting twists and turns. I also recognized some familiar friends from warmer seasons, like the dogobble on the right. Some of my favorite parts of the trail would be when I was traveling in a dark tunnel through the thick confines of the rhododendron and would suddenly enter into the bright white vista.
We've reached the first point here where we've got a little bit of a view, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. As you can see, just really pretty. We are beginning to get some degree of elevation. Right between us and that mountain over there, down in the middle, is the 441 to our west.
Even amidst the snow and sub-freezing temperatures, you can still find the beautiful greenery.
As you can see, we are coming up on our first stream to ford. Not much of a stream, huh? That is free-flowing water, so that counts. And back to the incline we know so well.
While I do love the vibrant green against the dark brown of the tree trunks and the white of the snow, there are the occasional splashes of other colors.
Really beginning to level out here, and it got so warm I had to zip open everything on my jacket, so take off the hat, and then like I said, getting ready to come into a level spot here. I think it's going to open up. We'll see what we find. Well, we're beginning to reach our altitude. Looks like we have a bit more to go. Just a bit optimistic. Okay, we are just over 3,000 feet now, and we're beginning to come to a crest. As you can see on the figure that I'll be inserting here, we've just reached the crest, an early crest. It's going to go up and down a little bit. And you'll see just a second here off to the right where we're going to be looking back down as we're making the loop going back around. We're right here looking down. One thing I was worried about was being too cold even during the day. And it turns out my worry is not sweating too much and then having that chill. So every time the breeze picks up and starts getting cold, I stop so I can take advantage of it, cool down, because I'm just too lazy to take off the pack and take off a layer. So as long as that works, that'll save me a little time. Here we go. Here's the ridge we're coming up on. And here we are off to the right. I believe down there in the valley, snakes in between, is going to be where probably your campsite's way down that way, about a mile or so. We've got to loop around counterclockwise. But now we have that on one side, and you can see from the trail, that's a cool logs, isn't it? Couldn't resist that. And we have this canine that we keep following their tracks. No owner, that is no human footprints with it, so I'm assuming maybe coyote or something. Oh, just beautiful. Well, we're finally beginning to level out for more than 15 feet at a time. Invariably, I'm going to be saying, oh, I think I reached the top. Time, and time again. Until finally, I quit getting excited, and then it happens. I believe we're getting up a ways here. Let's see. Sorry, got walk and use stuff here. Okay. Wait for this to. We are at 3,500 foot line, I think. Does look like we are at 3,500 feet. Yep. So I have maybe 300 to 400 more feet to go. I think it gets around 4,000 feet. So maybe 500 feet more to go. I can't remember if it's just over or a little under 4,000 before it starts downhill again. Oh, look at the view. It would be easy if I showed you, wouldn't it? You can just see the mountains through the trees here. Easier for me than through the camera here, but still, look at that beautiful sunlight dappled trail. And it turns out Park Service was kind enough to pad the trail for me here. Nice white padding. We have a unique phenomenon here. Downhill. First time we've encountered one of those. So probably around 3,700 feet at the moment. So I guess this starts our undulations, or I don't know, it could be downhill for good until we reach the campsite. Yes, I think so. The good news is I can make a little bit of headway on this, I'm hoping, in terms of a better pace. As you can see, we are beginning to drop back down below the height of the other ridges. And we are now heading probably due east, or maybe east-northeast, towards, away from the road towards the campsite 51, or 50, I think it is. Oh, here we go. We're still on our descent, but we have reached another saddle. Ah, nice little cool breeze. Just getting down into that saddle. Okay, for some reason my gimbal is now deciding to tilt to the left. So we'll just kind of deal with it because I can't figure out how to counter that. Although I do need to watch where I'm going. Anyway. Oh, wow. I love these roots. They're nice and slippery under the snow. Okay. We are still descending, but we are skirting around one little knoll here before we head back down. Making some nice progress here. Hopefully I can make it without taking a trip other than the one I'm on. Oh, that was cute. Fortunately, the snow is pretty dry. More or less powdery for the most part. So it grips fairly well, except for when you step on those roots that are angled down to the right and hidden by the snow. Then it's a nice slip and slide trying to take you downhill. As you can see, we're turning yet another corner. You have to go slow because there's these roots, you can't see them. You step on them and all of a sudden slip and slide to the downhill side. Boy, just look at this, at the scenery here. Tilt up a little bit. This is the direction we've been coming from. And you can see as we pan the other direction, it is just spectacular. Now we're looking down into that gorge. Okay, it has really leveled out, so I think we're, down to the valley we have to be, because here's our first little log crossing.
It just looks so picturesque with the snow on it.
And as long as we take just a little care, we should be able to cross this without becoming one with the river. And I'm going to forego the handrail so I don't get my hand cold. Nice and level, good traction snow. And voila. Cross the river without becoming one with it. This is really pretty. Oh, beautiful, beautiful. Onward we go. We should be coming to another trail here shortly. We're gonna turn left onto that. Oh, first we got to get across yet another bridge. Forgot about that.
I am so grateful the National Park Service chose to put in this kind of bridge. Obviously, it is a lifesaver in the winter, but it also is so beautifully rustic. It blends in so nicely with the natural scenery.
This is going to make a really cool picture, I think. All right, let's do this with some care. All right, because it's a lot deeper and I'm higher up, I will make use of the handrail just a little bit. But while we're here, what a pleasant sight. And you guessed it, in the interest of fair play, upstream, just delightful. You know, looking at all this snow, can't help but think how clean, how beautiful. Reminds me of the promise that if we come to our Savior, ask for forgiveness, His blood will wash us clean, white as snow. Now, just as we're climbing up from the bridge, okay, here is Bradley Fork Trail, and we also have Chasteen Creek Trail, Smokemont Campground, and of course, Cabin Flats Trail to the left. All right, we're going to go right here on the Bradley Fork Trail. Take a right, and we'll go on that for about half a mile, and then turn left onto Chasteen Creek Trail. And up Chasteen Creek Trail, about 1/10 of a mile, is campsite 50. So, onward and outward.
Every so often you find something like this Christmas fern. A beautiful patch of greenery amongst the white snow.
Looks like, indeed, yes. We are, I would say fast approaching, but this late in the day, I'll just stick with approaching our intersection with the next trail. Kristen, or something of that nature. Okay, let's see what we got here. Okay, it's on the Bradley Fork. Sure enough, we are now only 1.2 miles from the campground. And if we look here, sure enough, this is the Chasteen Creek Trail. We'll hit campsite 50 in 1/10 of a mile, and we're home for the night. With a degree of challenge tonight, namely 12 degrees. Well, we'll work at that when we get there to get set up. Okay, I think this is one of the entrances into the campsite. I believe the official labeled entrance is up here.
Turns out I was about to waste some time on an unplanned detour, but then, can any time we spend in the Smokies really be called wasted?
We're coming up, I think, to bridge here. And here's our obligatory look at the creek. There we are. Thanks to some poor marking.
And yes, a little poor observation on my part.
I went right past campsite 50. So now we get to cross the bridge again, head on back, and we will pick it up. That place where I thought it was the other entrance, I think that was actually it. Turns out I went probably 1 to 2/10 out of my way. Not too bad. Okay, here we are. We have reached it. It is indeed that thing where I said it's the other entrance. It's not the other entrance, it's the only entrance. So now let's come in here, see what we got. Wow, I'm down to 17% on my battery, so I better get this done and start it charging. Ah, normally they put it right on the trail. But sure enough, there we are. Okay, campsite 50. Okay, there's your campfire. It looks like some area for tents. Let's see, where do they have? Okay, I do not see where they have the bear lines hauling stuff up, but I'm guessing it's going to be
Right here, as you can see from those two discs with the wire stretched between it.
over here somewhere, so let me just see what we got.
Just to show you how cold it was, I set this bottle out on the stump while I was preparing my food. In about 20 minutes, it had already frozen a layer inside about almost a 1/4 inch thick. Turns out I was pretty tired after my day of hiking up and down the mountain. I knew the forecast was for 12 degrees Fahrenheit, Later I found a few places online that said it got down to 10 degrees Fahrenheit. And I wanted to make sure I was all set. So I got my hammock set up, the wood ready for the campfire, prepared my food, and changed and charged the battery on my gimbal and my phone. As a result, I did not manage to do any filming, except for this lovely campfire. I cannot tell you how wonderful it was to have the warmth from that fire while the temperature dipped close to the single digits.
Okay, it's a little hard to see here, but just got up. It's 5 o'clock, and boy was it cold last night. Fortunately, the little blanket and the hammock here, the insulated hammock, did pretty well along with my jackets and stuff that I was wearing. But once you're down to around 9 degrees, it taxes even that. You can see I'm still under the little tent rainfly for the hammock, and it is coated with frost from my breath. So I'm gonna get the drink going. It's a hot drink, warm up a little bit, and then have breakfast, and we'll take it from there.
And of course, my faithful Era model of the sway hammock with its insulated goose down really is very nice. Okay, a quick disclaimer here. I realize the following footage does not show my full face. Setting this up when I was that cold and that tired, I just assumed I would fit, and I didn't, into the picture frame. So bear with me, and I will keep this section short.
Well, got our warm drink going. It's so warm I can't quite put my hands on it. But it does feel good. It does kind of keep my hands from freezing. I had to get the water going. Then I had to really quick start walking up and down the trail really fast, just to keep get the blood pumping and circulating, so I'd get down to my toes and warm them up. They're just a little cold. I have the stove still on here for a little ambience. It's about 5:45 maybe. Unfortunately, I burned all my wood last night, so I don't have anything for a fire this morning. Don't know if you can see this too well, but here it's already icing up. And that's just in the times past 20 minutes that I've been up and setting things around and freezing to the side. If I hadn't had this in the hammock with me all night, this thing would be a block of ice. Just before I went to bed, I've been sitting around the fire doing nothing after all that exercise, and now I'm not active at all. So all of a sudden, I got some chills, like just shivering, and I had to get up and walk around very actively. Went about a tenth of a mile down to the main trail and back about 2-3 times. that warmed me up just fine, and my toes. I could not keep those warm. Just finally ended up taking the gloves right here and sticking them over my foot as far as they go, and it was okay. It was cold, but not achingly cold. So that's the next time I do something like this. I think I'll actually use a down jacket. These rain pants over my heavier Eddie Bauer tech-like pants over the thermals, this is just fine right now. The way that hammock goes over and wraps back over top and zips really makes a huge difference. When I turn off the light, it's still pitch black, and beautiful stars.
I was actually able to get a fairly decent picture of Orion.
The Lord has really blessed us to allow us something this beautiful. Okay, eaten, packed up my camp, had everything ready to go. I've sent my satellite message to everybody saying I'm starting my hike, so ready to go and get things on the ball here. Okay, the gimbal is working again, but we're right down to 0%, so it'll stop at any second. I'm gonna see if I can get it to last until we hit this sign. All right. Oh, this is the toe string horse trail, which we're not interested in. And of course, this we are interested in, point 2. And I will do that. I will point to the direction we're headed. All right, just a little more to go. Pretty gimbal is almost dead, so we may lose this. We'll have to see. I'll have to speak up. Oh, it's icy here. Okay.
It was so fun seeing all the places that the water froze, creating these intricate little crystalline structures. But as I began this descent, I was saddened by the knowledge that my visit to this blessed, wonderful Sylvan tranquility was nearly at an end.
And so ends another outing into the beautiful, great Smoky Mountains National Park. Well, it's time for me to get back on the road, enjoy a nice, warm meal at some friendly location, and we'll do this again next time.